Dear friends, are you ready for knocks upon the door at night by children dressed up in costumes forming various levels of frightfulness, celebrating Halloween, which is of course All Hallows Eve tonight? What I want to talk about this morning, though, is the Feast of All Hallows itself, or as we now refer to it, the Feast of All Saints. I want to explain the idea of the Communion of Saints, something that we refer to every time that we say the Creed, when we say that we believe in it. What is that communion, and how does it link in with our service of Holy Communion, the Eucharist? Well, through our baptism, all Christians are joined into the one body of Christ. That is what baptism accomplishes. What is more, being joined into the body of Christ means that you are a saint. The original meaning of the word in the Bible, and the sense in which we use it in our liturgy, is simply a reference to being a Christian, to being a member of the baptized community. So the communion of saints isn't about a huddle of holy people with halos, it is about the gathering of all those in fellowship with Christ. It is about the body of Christ formed in baptism. It is about the church militant, a phrase which refers to those saints who are presently alive, militant because we have jobs to do, and the church triumphant, a phrase which refers to those saints who have gone to glory, who are triumphant because now they are in the presence of God. In other words, the expression the communion of saints is about the church seen from a particular angle, seen from the viewpoint of eternity, from God's point of view. We mustn't think of the church as being composed of the people alive today who are baptized and in fellowship with us, but rather of the church as being composed of all those baptized through the ages, times past and times yet to come. For the communion of the church, the fellowship of the baptized, is something which transcends death. In just the same way as the resurrection overthrows death, and so Christ is free from the clutches of death, so too are all those baptized into him sharers in that victory. In baptism we have passed from death to life. We are no longer subject to death. And that means that the communion of the baptized is itself not subject to the divisions which death makes in our midst. The communion of saints is eternal. It shares in God's own nature, and crucially, it is linked to the communion which we share when we break bread together. According to the book of Acts, the early church gathered to devote themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. This sharing around a common table has always been the living centre of the ongoing Christian faith. We are obeying Christ's own command to do this to remember him. In addition, when the Christian community celebrates the Eucharist, we believe that Christ, the head of our communion, is present in our midst. And this sharing, this breaking of bread, is what enables us to share in that communion which transcends death. As Jesus puts it in the Gospel of John, he who feeds on this bread will live forever. So, in the bread and wine of our communion service, we are touching eternity. For a moment, we quite literally have a taste of what heaven is like, when all the faithful are gathered together for the feast in heaven. For what this gathering around a table is sharing in is that communion of saints. In other words, precisely that gathering of the faithful, both living and departed, all those under Christ's authority, all the members of the body of Christ, that body which has conquered death, all are present in the communion when we share it, the communion with bread and wine, the communion of saints. When we gather, we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, all those who have gone before us, with the angels and archangels and all the company of heaven. We are not alone. Whenever we gather for our worship, whenever we share in our communion, they are with us. For as Christ tells us, God is not a God of the dead, but of the living. And this means that we don't need to be afraid of death, nor of anything that looks or sounds like death, like ghosts and ghoulies and things that go bump in the night, or even knock, 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 trick or treat. Amen.